Hey y'all, welcome back to Red Studios. And in this behind the scenes episode, I'm going to be covering my step by step process for writing short stories. Short stories are a great starting point if you're interested in getting into long form or professional writing. While it may seem easy to just get started, which it can be, there is a form of structure that's involved in the process. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I build mine, from the first idea to the final draft. Let's get into this. Okay, so a concept is your idea that you would like to turn into a story, but it's not necessarily the story itself. I say that because depending on what the idea is going to determine on how you write it. These are a couple things you want to keep in mind when using an idea. The specific aspect of what you want to use for the idea. Does it have a visual component or element to it? And does it contain tension or curiosity for the reader to stick around? So I'm going to use an example of coconuts. Let's say that you want to write about coconuts. Well, what about a coconut would you like to write about? That's going to be your specific. In this example, I want to write about how refreshing I think a coconut is while on vacation. Okay, so the next question we're going to ask. Is this written in a way that induces a reader's imagination? So while writing about coconuts, I want to make sure that I point out aspects of like the taste, and that I'm using descriptive language that is going to help my reader to imagine what the coconut looks like, how it may taste, and how it's connected to my setting. And then, what about this coconut creates a curiosity that will keep my reader engaged? I want the reader to crave the coconut or associate the coconut with being on vacation and relaxing. So, in this particular aspect of developing a concept, you want to go ahead and ask yourself what if questions that will help clarify any of your specifics, maybe help you observe something in real life as a reference or to do some research for inspiration, and what's the emotional tension or curiosity that's going to draw your reader in. So here are some tips and some key points that to keep in mind when developing or developing a new concept. Have 3 to 5 questions that you can answer to help create your outline. Here's our coconut inspiration. Okay, so we're going to pick both a theme and a genre for our story. First off, what is a theme? A theme is the main topic or subject in your story that conveys a deeper meaning behind the actual idea or message itself. Your genre is the category of creative works that share a similar stylistic theme to help your audience understand what to expect from the story. You can have several themes that may match your story, but you want to do the one that fits closest to your underlying message or idea for your story. So, for example, since I'm writing a short story about coconuts, I'm not going to use the theme of love. In this example, I'm just going to keep things simple. So, I'm going to write about being on vacation. Being on vacation is my theme. Here are some other examples that you can utilize for themes. So, like I mentioned before, love, identity, memory, loneliness, things along those natures that would match closest to your idea that you want to fit for your theme. Now, the genre is the category your story is going to fall under. For example, like sci-fi, romance, thrillers, slice of life. And your genre is going to influence the pace and the tone of your story. So in my example, my story falls under slice of life. So overall, your theme is going to give your story depth and your genre is going to give your story direction. And here's a pro tip here. Stick to one theme, stick to one genre. Try not to make it complicated for yourself. It reduces your stress level. Okay, so let's get into characters. The goal is to make characters functional and meaningful. Your story may or may not contain characters, so that can also be an option. And just a quick disclaimer, I have a future how-to video that's going to be dedicated on how to create characters, so this portion is going to be brief. And if you would like to check that out, make sure to subscribe to the channel and set your notification to catch that video in the future. So when developing a character, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Are they going to be the main character? And since this is a short story, what do you want them, like the overall goal to be for them in the story? What's going to be their conflict? So what's stopping them? And what is it that they may or may not need to shift to get to the end game? So either you have a main character, which is going to be your protagonist. What do you want them to do? What do you want them to say? What's stopping them? And what is needed from them? In a short story, your character doesn't need full development or a life story. Just some little pointers here and there to help your reader connect with them, or a clear moment of change. Okay, so this is where our story really starts to shape up with the outline. The goal of an outline is to help prevent you from rambling. It gives your story an overall structure and it helps you write your draft. So in our example, we're going to use a very simple, basic structure of an outline, which is going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I'm going to provide an early tip that can be used for both your outline and your draft that I'm going to provide right now. So keep in mind, unless you know how you're going to start your story, write the beginning later. Beginnings can be a real pain to start, and it can kind of give you writing paralysis if you're trying to focus too much on writing the beginning at the beginning. So for the sake of this video, and to keep things cohesive, I am going to start my outline at the beginning. This is where we can introduce either the protagonist and or a situation and establish our tone for our overall story. Next is the middle. This is where your conflict develops, the tension increases, and a form of climax either happens or begins. Then your end, which will consist of a shift towards an emotional payoff and or a resolution. And here's a quick tip before we get into the example. When writing your outline, think of writing in scenes versus writing in a paragraph. Scenes are going to be quick little bullet points just to get your overall thought of what you would like to happen, versus a paragraph is pretty much for your draft. So don't start writing your draft now, just bring up some quick points so you can just start writing. Okay, so in the video you can see that I'm writing out a simple structure, a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that you can see that I'm making bullet points and not paragraphs. The best part about an outline is the structure that you can get from brainstorming. So when you write your draft, you have a good flow. Here's a clip of me writing the actual outline for this story. This took me about 2 hours to write from start to finish. And that's because I was brainstorming and trying to provide like real substance for the story as a whole. All right, so now we're home stretching. This is where it can get a little difficult, not because you're writing the story, but the mentality that you may be in. Just keep in mind to remove any expectations that it's going to be perfect. This will keep the pressure off of you and will help maintain your sanity. Trust me, as someone that used to severely struggle with a perfectionist mindset, it will keep you on track. Now, this is where you just want to start writing and getting your thoughts out. Unless you already have a beginning in mind, just start where your story flows. If you mess up, keep going. Don't edit mid-writing because you'll lose your train of thought, or you can lose your train of thought. Okay, once you have everything written out, on the first draft, you want to fix the structure. If you have a paragraph that needs to be moved, or you would like to add or remove different points, this is going to be your time to do so. Now, before you start making any edits, and I probably should have said this beforehand, you want to reread your story a few times before you go making any drastic changes. So before you actually start editing any of your drafts, reread it first and then start making your edits. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second portion, or your second draft. This is if in the event you want to start adding or removing details, like maybe to your environment, strengthening character development, clarifying scenes, anything along those lines. Now moving on to the last draft, your third draft, this is where you're going to start finalizing everything. We're going to polish the language, make sure that the pacing is good, and remove any unnecessary parts. Some common mistakes that tend to happen while editing your draft is either you can edit too early, you can overwrite, or you can lose the original idea. All right, so your first draft is your discovery, and your later drafts are finalizing your design. So this is my draft typed out. I wanted to write it, but my hand tired out, so I ended up typing it instead. Okay, so now it's time to finalize. We're going to take everything that we just did and put it together like a big puzzle. So the main focus here is for your opening to be strong, consistent tone, tight pacing, and an impactful ending. Here's a checklist that you can use to finalize your story. Does every scene matter? Is the theme clear but not forced? And does the ending feel right? A tip here is to read your story out loud, and if you have someone around that you feel comfortable enough to share it with, read it to them as well. Try to get some feedback from a trusted source. So how do I know if my story is done? The message feels clear, nothing feels unnecessary, and emotionally it feels good. I don't really know how to put that one other than that. And voila! You have finished your story. I will say this, it doesn't have to be perfect, especially if this is your first time writing. It's important to keep that in mind because it's better to finish a story than to have a perfect idea. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Just keep in mind that you don't need to write something long for it to be meaningful. Keep it simple for yourself throughout the process. So creating the concept, which is your idea, give yourself a theme and a genre. If you have characters, an outline, a draft, and then finalize it. The biggest one that I didn't say throughout the video, really enjoy yourself while you're doing this. Have some fun. Start small, finish something, do it again, just right. If you're thinking about writing a story or you are writing a story, I would love to hear about your concepts in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next episode.